Hello, my name is Lamana Donadale, and this is the conditional part one of the Intro to Programming and Logic class. And I chose problem three because it's the one that I had the most questions about. So we'll walk through it and see how I did. And so this one was the rock, paper, scissors question. And so it is using a random number generator to generate one of three numbers. And it's also getting user input where it is asking the user to input rock, paper, or scissors. They're going to compare those two um, and then based on who chooses what, you have a winner or loser, just like the game rock, paper, scissors. So we're going to start this off with the flow charting. We have our start symbol. We're going to ask the user for that input. And the input that they give is going to be a text input. And so we're asking them to input either rock or paper or scissors. Um, and and so they're going to input this, and depending on which one they put, we want to create a new variable so that we can change that value to a number so that we can do some math with it a little bit later. And so we're going to do a random number generator. So we're going to compare the equivalent number to their rock, paper, scissors to the randomly generated number. And so for that reason, we want to do an if statement or a series of if statements. So if the user inputs paper, um, if this is true, then we're going to create a variable called user guess num. We're going to set that equal to 0. And because this is still a text string, because any user input comes in as a text string, we are going to convert that to an integer. And so if the user's guess is not paper, we want to check to see if it is rock. If it is rock, if that's a true statement, then we're going to set that user guess number to 1 and then again convert it to an integer. If it is not paper or it is not rock, then we are going to check to see if it is scissors. If it is scissors, we're going to set that user guess num to 2. Convert that to an integer. If it is not rock, paper, or scissors, then we have a backup clause in here where we're going to set that user guess number to an integer of 3. And the reason that we want to do that is because later on in the programming, our formula is going to be looking for user guess num. And if we don't set it equal to anything here, then we're going to get a name error later on. And so I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but I found that it did work. There might be a better way to do it, but that's just how I did it. And actually, I didn't draw a line to the end, but this, if you do enter something else, you're going to get an error statement that says, please enter rock, paper, and scissors. So I did not put that into my flow chart. I've already turned this in, so I won't change it now, but this should have another path that says you didn't do what you're supposed to do, so we're going to give you an error. The next part, and this could come first or second, but I just wanted to get that user input in first. But the next part of this is going to be the random number generator. And so we're going to import the the random library so that we can generate a random number. And so the lower end of that is going to be 0. The upper end of that is going to be 2. So any number between 0 and 2. And if you notice, when we assigned our numbers to the user input, that's also a 0, a 1, or 2. That is intentional because we want to be able to compare the user input to the randomly generated number. And if we keep them the same, it's just easier to keep it straight in your head, like which numbers we're comparing. So now we have our random number generator. And we want to do the inverse here. So I have numbers here, but according to the rules, we want to tell the user what the computer has generated, and not just it the computer chose one, but the computer chose paper. So put we have to create some variables that will give these randomly generated numbers a string value. So if the random number that was generated is equal to 0, if that is true, then we're going to create another variable called the computer's guess, and we're going to assign that to a text string called paper. If it is false, meaning that it was we're going to check to see if that randomly generated number was 1. And if that is true, we are going to assign this computer guess to the string rock. If it is not 0 or not 1, then it is 2. And now that I'm reading this, I'm realizing that I did not need to state this to be false. So this would be if this, else if this, else, this could go straight to the computer guess equaling scissors, because there are no other options. It's not wrong to do it this way. We just don't need to. So, but anyway, so now we have the three options for the computer, the randomly generated number, and then we know what the string equivalent is once we get that. Um, So now we want to go into another series of if statements. And here I didn't type everything out. I just left it um, abbreviated because there are a lot of options that can happen here. So I was just being lazy. Um, so the first thing I want to do is check the way that I did it. I checked to see if the user's guess, which is the number based on their input. So I have the user guess num. If that is equal to num, so if the number that the user guess is equal to the computer generated guess, um, the computer generated number, then something's going to happen. And again, here there will be a bunch of different print statements depending on the variation, but the idea that I represent here is that depending on who guesses what, the computer is going to say something, and we're going to print that out. And so here's the computer guess, and this should just be comp and not computer, but that's going to be the text version. We're going to output the text of what the computer guessed, the text of what the user guessed. So here, this user guess goes all the way back to their actual input. And now we're not using the numerical value anymore. We're just using their text input. And so we're going to and so based on the if then statement, the if statements, we're going to print out the text statements and then the other things that go along with it. So all of the different variations of rock paper scissors. So and I will write all this out in the actual code, but I know that this is just my placeholder saying I'm going to print what the computer said and what the user said and some more text. And um and so I summarized it, so it doesn't matter if the user's guess and the number is 1, 0, 1, or 2. Anytime they're equal, we're going to print something that's going to say, y'all said the same thing, as a tie. Um, Otherwise, else, if and then we're going to go into all the variations. If the computer says rock and you said scissors, then the rock smashes the scissors. If the user says paper and you said rock, so that's what these represent. So that's my shorthand, just to say that there's going to be a lot of different if, else, if statements here that, depending on what they say, again, we're just going to print out what the computer says, what you said, and then what the outcome of that is going to be. And then, of course, this needs an arrow I must have undid something because I think I in my original in the one that I submitted, it should have had an arrow. So a couple of errors here. Um, but that was my thought process behind this. And so this one felt a little bit convoluted. I just feel like there is a simpler way to do this, but that's what I came up with so far. And then let me go over to, I don't know if you can, let me stop sharing and where I'm going to share the correct document. Does this show up on here? It does not. So let me stop sharing and then reshare. Um, I'm just going to do entire screen here. Window. And make sure this is. Okay, so yeah. And so this is at the code, the Python code. Again, I start off with a comment in my name, the date, and the problem number. And so, again, the first thing I want to do is import the random library so that we can do the random number generator. And then I'm going to create a variable called num, and that's where I'm going to store whatever that random number generates with the random.ranInt. Turn it into a random integer. I have my bottom set at 0 and my top set at 2. So any number 0, 1, or 2, it will randomly generate. And then I'm going to create a variable for to hold my user's guess. And then I'm going to ask them to type in rock, paper, or scissors. Again, the first thing that we want to do is, based on what they say, we want to generate a number equivalent so that we can do some math with it. So if the user guesses paper, we are going to create a user guess number of 0, and we're going to turn that into an integer. Else, if they guess rock, we're going to turn it into the number 1 integer. Else, if they guess scissors, we're going to turn that into number 2. And here is the final else statement. And again, this is where we want to store just a variable so that we can instantiate this user guess number so that later on when we try to do our calculations, we don't get that name error. And so I'm just going to set it equal to to 3. And so here I commented in if anything else is entered, if they enter, butterfly instead of rock, paper, scissors, because they don't understand how to play the game, then we're going to, now we have a way to handle that. And so we'll handle that in an error statement later on. This is, I have the handling of this in the code, but I didn't put it in my flow chart. So, um, and so now that we have the number value for our user's guess, now we need to do something with this randomly generated number. So if the num, which is the randomly generated number, if it's equal to 0, then we're going to create a new variable called comp guess, which is the computer's guess, and we're going to assign that to paper. If it is not equal to 0, we're going to check to see if it is equal to 1. And that, if that is the case, we're going to assign comp guess to be rock. Otherwise, if it is not 0, 1, and this is what I was saying in the spread in the flow chart, I did it here. So if it's not this or that, then else it's going to be scissors. because those are the only three options. And we don't need to have like another situation like this where we're trying to handle it, because again, those are the only three options. This is not where the user can input anything. We've set this up to limit it to only those three options. So now that we have the user's guess and the computer's randomly generated guess, we can play the game. Um, and so here, again, the way that I chose to do it, I said that so I'm going to say that anytime the computer's guess is the same as the user's guess, then we're going to print the computer chose this, and and so it's a tie. And so here, note two things. One, I'm using num and I'm using user guess num. So this is how we can do the math. Now I have a number for num, and I also have a number, both integers, for the user guess num. So now I can say if they're equal, then print this. And so here in my print statement, I have a string, a variable, and then on a new line, I am going to say it's a tie, which is another string. And so here are all the variations of possibilities, I think. I was trying to remember back to all the rules for rock, paper, scissors. So hopefully my logic is right. But here, so if the computer generated random number is not equal to the user's number or guess, then we have some other things that we can do. If number equals 0, um, which is equal to, and I commented in, which is equal to paper, and if the user's generated number is equal to 1, then I'm going to print the computer chose paper, which covers your rock, which is a lose. Else if the computer generated 0, still paper, and the user guessed scissors, then then we're going to print the computer chose paper, which gets cut by your scissors, which means that you win, and so forth and so on. So we go on to say all the iterations. So we have this covered if they're the same. So if number is 0, if the computer generated random number is 0, we have the two other scenarios besides them being equal. If the computer chooses 1, besides them being equal, there are two other scenarios. It can be 0 or 2. If it's 1, that gets covered by them being the same. And then if the same, else if number, the computer generated number is 2, which is scissors, it could either be the same, which is covered here, or it could be 0 or 1. And so this goes through all the different variations and tells you, based on what the computer chose and what you chose, is going to print the text, the string equivalent to your number. So we're going to do the math with the numbers, and based on that, we're going to convert it back to the text string, and this is what gets output to the user, along with what it all means, whether you win or lose. And so here is where we go back to that, to using this idea. If they didn't put rock or paper or scissors, we're going to have an else statement. So we said if all of the variations are not satisfied, then we're going to print a statement, invalid output, game is terminated. And that happens because we assigned the scenario where they don't put 0, 1, or 2 to a 3. And so now we've said, is this user guess number is going to be either a 1, a 0, a 1, or a 2. Otherwise, 3 is that otherwise. So it's not a 1, a 0, or 2. Otherwise, we're going to print invalid game, invalid input. And so that's why this matters. If we didn't have this, um, if we didn't assign this to a number here, then it would go through all the options and it wouldn't know what to do with this user guess number. And so it would return a name error because we have this variable that never got assigned up here. If because we it only assigned it if someone puts in rock, paper, or scissors. We didn't have a scenario if they put in anything else. So here, this covers the everything else scenario. And so this is how I approached it. I feel like it's a bit long and repetitive. So I'm thinking there may be some type of loop for it, but that's all I have for today.